I wanted to do a quick tutorial on making cinematic impacts. There's loads of ways to do these, but the way I kind of like to do them just makes things pretty easy to chop and change and easy to organize. So I'll run you through how I do it anyway. Again, like all sound design stuff, the key generally is layering stuff on top of each other, and I've kind of matched these kind of transients, and you can see on each one. But let's if I play these briefly, and you can see what I've kind of done with them. Right. So most of the heavy lifting is done obviously by the sample itself. You've got your transient that is treated with effects or whatever, but the real kind of magic behind these kind of deep cinematic booms and clangs is obviously the reverb choice. So in dealing with these impacts for the basically the transients that I've kind of chosen, I'll switch off the effects chain here and here, and you can hear what I have. They're just like a branding iron, an ammo crate, and another different part of the ammo crate, so to give us this kind of a fairly mundane kind of clink. And I have some more little bits here which I don't think you'll even be able to hear because the effects pull them up. But if I just go up quickly, they're just a few little extra bits which you can't really hear now, but you will once the effects are on. So everything is now that. For this one, similar again, we've got like here we have an antique storm shutter lantern, very basic. Tiny bit of celery just to give it something else. And the important layer here for me was this bit of a bleep, because I wanted to give it some kind of synthetic feel. So it's just a bloop, nothing fancy there, from one of my sample packs. So there's that. And on this one, it was something I used basically two punch sounds that I made. I think one is a heavier punch, one is a light, just me hitting some kind of sofa or something, probably like that. Same antique lantern sample here. And the more important style layer up here would be this electrical interference, which was recorded probably with one of my LOMs. So let's hear that. Just sounds nothing by itself, really, just a bit of a fizz. The other, let's hear the other impacts. You can kind of hear that there's definitely kind of like a punch slap. So and all together, again, nothing major really at all. This channel here I'll talk about in a sec, because this is kind of another channel, but just for now, once I switch my effects on, so all these samples here are routed to a group out. So everything affects each of the samples. They're going through the same effects. And I like to do this because it saves a lot of time rather than getting individual samples and sending them to send FX, etc., parallel processing. So this saves a lot of time. You do kind of need to get your sample kind of selection right. So there's a bit of fiddling around with your transients. You need to keep your transients short and sharp, and they need processing as well to kind of bring out the the heavy reverb at the other end. So let's have a look at the, if we have a look at the what I've got. So all those samples are being routed to here, this output. So on this, I have first of all a Pro Q, just taking some of the high ends out because I want these to be deep and dark. So that's why I'll roll off some of the high end. Then I have an uber loud to kind of bring up some of those transients and kind of like flatten them together, and they kind of sound more homogeneous, but it brings out extra detail. Again, if you don't have uber loud, you could use some kind of compressor, maybe with a bit, maybe a tube compressor or something. But this is great because it really, once you push it, it'll bring out a lot of the details. And now I just have a distortion plugin, Coldfire. Again, you could use anything, but I'm concentrating more on the kind of low end. Like this is a kick distortion. Fiddled about with different presets, and that's the one I kind of I stayed with. Now then I use an enforcer, and that just adds basically, excuse me, a hit of sub underneath that, so that'll, you know, give our sound that extra kind of thump that we need in the low end. Now, because the distortion brings out more, compresses the audio and brings out more harmonics, I've rolled off some of the higher end again. Because I'm really interested in the kind of mid-range and the lower kind of harmonics, because you know, that will just give more sound that the reverb can work with. I have also added a Redopter, again another D16 kind of vintage tube distortion plugin, and I've again gone for a low kind of electro preset. But I mean, you can fiddle around with these to get the one you like. As I said, because you're adding distortion, it compresses the audio and it can kind of flatten the transient. So I've brought back in a transient shaper. And finally, and this is the kind of, I suppose, secret sauce, is your reverb set to 100%. I mean, you can change it if you want it slightly less deep, etc. Long tail, and I like the tunnel for this, kind of a very kind of dank, reverberant texture. This is a convolution reverb, but you can use anything. This is a Nuendo's own convolution, but you could use anything that you like. So we have those here. Sorry, what I didn't say, and I'll bring it up here. You can see I have an Elastic Pro pitch. Sorry, just going to bring it up. All these plugins are going over to my secondary screen. So I have this pitch shifter plugin, Elastic Pitch, and here it goes. So, and the reason why I have this on is, yes, it's lowering everything by 12 semitones. I could even double that. I could duplicate that plugin again, so I'd have two of them on, so you'd be minus 24. But the reason is I can actually, now if I take that off, put it back on, you know, I have a different sound. So that can kind of give you basically double your sounds, so in a really short space of time, because I like to build up a library of these type of effects, and that's one way to do it. Like a pitch shifted version and a non-pitch shifted version. But anyway, so we're back to our samples here again. Now, what I did was, because with all the processing and going up with the convolution reverb up to kind of 100%, it can kind of still flatten the sound a bit. And as much as I love those kind of deep, long clangs, etc., I also added in an extra style layer. Now this one here, this layer here, goes to its, it has its own set of effects, which are very similar to the effects I just showed you, but they're not quite as heavily processed. So our style layers is and just they'll just give an extra dimension to the sound. And once I turn the effects on, and I have them quite high in the mix, so they add an extra punch for the transient. So if we have a quick listen without, which I'm sure you're sick of by now, and now we add it back in, you get that kind of extra click, like transient hit. So let's get rid of this, bring it in. It's hard to hear that actually, so look, I'm going to bring it up a bit. Adds a bit back, and then with and without, sorry, without. You can definitely hear it on that one. And you can swap these samples around as you want because all the effects are on one place. So these effects here for this channel are pretty simple. You've got the uber loud again, but I've cranked it up, so I'm getting like heavy compression, and I'm also kind of bringing up some extra harmonics with the distortion here. An enforcer again to beef up the low end. I'm using a different reverb because I wanted a different kind of different flavor as a contrast to the one. So it's a small hall, mix is pretty high as well. And finally, just to bring out some saturation, just the old SPL twin tube processor, one of my oldest plugins actually. So I could go into more processing and EQ, etc., but this is just like to give you an idea of a workflow. And the other thing I have, my rolling sampler, it's got a 2-minute duration, reset it basically, and if I wanted to record these, I would just and there we have that. I can just select these. I'd clean the tails on them because there's a bit of an overlap, but you just take out the tails like this, and then you'd fade them. Handy enough, and that would be that. And to produce a lot of these, I could have the rolling sampler going away, doing its thing, and I could literally put it on to 10 minutes, and I could swap these samples in and out, change the style layers here, change the distortion presets, run through different convolution settings as well. So you could literally, in a very short space of time, you could produce a lot of these kind of clangs, reverb, cinematic hits. Anyway, so that's just one quick way of I find working. Oh, and usually at the end, just when you're making these things, make sure you have a limiter, because if you start switching samples that are different levels, you can start getting clipping, etc. And I usually have an EQ on the master out as well, just to maybe, when these things accumulate a lot of kind of mud, I might take a little bit out, anywhere between like 200 and 500. It kind of depends, it's depending on the sound. So hopefully that kind of helped you guys out. Thanks for checking it out. If you have any comments or want me to cover anything else, let me know, and I'll see you in the next one.